Guys, my name is Michael and welcome to a new GTK tutorial. Today we are going to move on and today we are going to learn something new. Until now, from the last playlist which I uploaded, we learned how one can create menus with the help of the GMenu. In that playlist, or better say in those videos, we saw that once that you create a new item, basically you had to pass through arguments. The first one of the GMenu item new was the label of the menu, and the second one was a detailed action. What a detailed action means, basically it is information about the mapping which applies for the action and the action itself. About the app mapping, basically in the GactionMap there are stored information about which kind of groups those actions are belong. In other words, we have for the application defaults to app and win for the Windows, but of course you can create your own, and these things we are going to learn a little bit later. Anyway, at this point, if I'm going to compile and run the program, you will see that we have a file which has 3 items inside it with their actions off, because with their items set to off, or better said deactivated, and this happens because we have no actions on it. What those actions exactly means, that we are going to check in a second. The first thing first, you have to go to developer.gnome.org, and once that you are here, just use a slash and then GAction, like I'm doing right now, and you will going to see something similar to this one, which is very important that you understand before you proceed. Anyway, a GAction says it is a representation of a single user interesting action in an application. To use a GAction, you should be using GTK application. No, you should not. This is old. You don't need to concentrate yourself at this point. I mean, of course you should use GTK application from the example, but it is not 100% the only way. You will see. So in other words, sorry, they are right. You should. You do not must. You should. Okay, so it is possible to use GAction without a GTK application, but this is not discussed here. Okay, so this is the part which I meant when I said you should not. Okay, so this page is about GAction with your GTK application. Now let's see what it is and what it is not. A GAction is essentially a way to tell the toolkit about a piece of functionality in your program. So in other words, you give a name for that functionality. So the important thing which you need to know, it is the association, which has as you can see 4 pieces information. An action has a name, has an enable flag like sensitive, it has a states, for example for boolean for toggles, and of course has a parameter type. For example, when you activate an action, you will see those things. An action supposed to operation, activation and state change. In other words, activation invoked with an optional parameter of the correct type. So in other words, activation means when you go basically somewhere. Let me go inside here, and at this point I'm going to choose the manager. So clicking on it basically opens the manager, which means the activate got place. Okay, so now the next thing, change state or state change request invoked with a new request state value. In other words, if you have a menu where you have 3 options, like for example an output where you say you have speakers, microphone, whatever, and you want to choose one of them and not more than one, then basically the state change with the parameter will do the job for you. You will see that part as well. So there is very important the rules. The name is immutable, so in the sense that will never change and it is never null. So remember that. The enable flag can change, of course. True or false. The parameter is immutable. Once you create it, it's there, don't work with it. Don't try to change it. But of course the parameter type is optional. It can be also null. If the parameter type is null, then the action activation must be done without a parameter, of course. Null, G variant pointer, whatever. If the parameter type is not null, then the parameter must have this type, the type which matched. You will see the state can change, but it cannot change the type. Very important. If the action has stateful, was stateful when it was created, it will always have a state. If action is stateless, if has no state, then it can never have a state, and so on. Anyway, there are long steps which I'm strongly suggesting you that you read all these things, because it is very important for you to understand them. Okay, that being said, the next thing which is very important for you to understand it is that I'm going to create 5 playlists with all this information, and probably in this order, which means you need to, or you better watch all them 5 that you have a better understanding about it. But before you see, or before you watch those videos, I'm strongly suggesting you that you go and check the GMenu. And once that you know what GMenu is, which means you should probably check my my playlist. There you get everything you need to know and all information about the GMenu. That being said, we are going to start today with the GSimpleAction. So let me search for it. GSimpleAction, it says it is a simple GAction implementation, which means a GSimpleAction is the obvious simple implementation of the GAction interface. So this is the easiest way to create an action for purpose of adding it to a GSimpleActionGroup. This is another thing which we are going to talk a little bit later. Okay, so that being said, we need to create the first action, and we need the GSimpleActionNew, which is a function which returns a GSimpleAction pointer and says creates a new action. The created action is stateless, which means has no state. There is another one to create with state, that is another story. So this one has no state, it's just like a regular button for you to understand it. So the name of the action, it is the name, and the parameter type is the parameter type that will be passed. To handle for activate signal. Activate signal means once that you click the item or the button, the activate signal get catched or happens, and then with the help of that parameter you are working with. We will see about that as well. Anyway, let me call this one. But before we do that, I'm going to create a function, because I don't want to GTK application. I don't want to mess too much the information. So application, okay. Now static void create actions. Okay. Now here we need to declare a GSimpleAction pointer, this one, and I'm going to say new action, and the new action we are going to point it to the GSimpleActionNew. Now the GSimpleActionNew, like I said, it needs a name, so in this case it will be the new. Why I'm choosing the new? Because this is the name of the action which we decide to pass it to when we were creating the item. And of course the second one, the parameter, it will be null this time, because we are not going to work with something which we are not interested, at least not now. Now the next thing, we need another function, GactionMap add action, GactionMap, this is the application, and of course we need the action, in this case the new action. Now the GactionMap add action, basically if we move a little bit to it, we are going to talk about it in another playlist, but the important thing here is that this function basically adds an action to the action map. If the action map already contains an action with the same name as action, then the old action is dropped from the action map. The action map takes its own reference on action. Okay, so that being said, this is the thing which this function does. Let me format it and compile it. Okay, and run it and see. Yeah, we have a problem because it needs a G action, which means we need to cast the new action to G action, like I'm doing right now. Now let me compile it again and run it, and because it's pointing me right here, I need to call this function. So this function, I'm going to call it before we set the menu. It's not important where you call it, but I'm going to do it right here. Okay, so now let's see. Here we are going to pass the application, and now because we call this function where we create a new action, let me compile it and run it and see what happens. File, and as you can see, it is not working. Why is not working? Because we were providing the same name, new, isn't it? Yes, but the name which we provided, it is the name which is matching the label and not the action. Why I'm talking about what I'm talking about? It's about the you need to take care when you create an action, because the action are not working with big letters, uppercases in this case. So in other words, you need lowercase. As you can see now, the new works fine, and the item which we are creating it also works fine. That being said, I'm going to stop now with this video, and we are going to see in the next video the next things which we are interested in. That being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.